So in team up, we were blessed with Articuno. So what does this card do? Well, it's all about the ability, and in fact, there are multiple aspects to this card which are really interesting. But it's the ability and the attack. Blizzard Veil is the reason why you would play this card. So it reads, as long as this Pokemon is your active Pokemon, whenever your opponent plays a supporter card from their hand, prevent all effects of that card done to your benched water Pokemon. Now, there are a few different supporters that exist in Standard at the moment that this ability would stop from having an effect on. The main one that we're going to be talking about today is Boss's Orders. So what basically happens is your opponent plays Boss's Orders, so they're allowed to play the card, they're allowed to target a benched water Pokemon, and then nothing happens. Really, really cool effect. And it means that you can control the prize trade, which I think is quite valuable in any format. And then Cold Cyclone, it allows you to do 70 damage to the opposing active Pokemon, and you move 2 energy from Articuno itself to your bench Pokemon. So you can see like Articuno is only a small, relatively small basic Pokemon. Being able to preserve the water energy from Cold Cyclone means that you can feed the Articunos to your opponent while powering up something on the bench, which can't be targeted by Boss's Orders, and that's the beauty of it, really. So the natural question leading from this is, what do you pair with Articuno? And there are a few things in format that you could. Of course, they have to be water Pokemon to really get the effect that you want from Blizzard Veil. The deck that I've been exploring Articuno with is, and we'll just move on over to standard decks, Lapras. So, Lapras VMax. To give credit where credit's due, this is based on a list that I saw being posted by Tord Reklev. Shortly after, I think, Players Cup 1, he shared his Inteleon VMax and Frosmoth list, which my previous video is also based on as well, with changes that I like. And same goes for this one too. So obviously the big change from his list, and I'm sure I'll find his Lapras Frosmoth list and put it in the description of this video. The big change is Articuno. So of course I'm including a full complement of Articunos. Quite the ideal starting Pokemon. Your opponent has no chance to disrupt or try and sneak a KO on the, let's say, the Lapras that you're trying to set up. It forces your opponents to deal with the Articuno. You've got the Lapras and the Lapras VMax themselves. Both are excellent cards, to be honest. Lapras V, 210 HP is nothing to sneeze at. And it's got a similar effect to the Articuno, where you're preserving energy with the Ocean Loop attack. So, put 2 energy attached to this Pokemon into your hand. So 2 energy comes off the Lapras, comes back into your hand. It's quite good in a deck with Frosmoth, for sure. And what you can use this Pokemon for is to deal with opposing Zamazenta Vs, which have the anti-VMAX ability. So, Lapras VMax is one of your star players alongside Articuno. This is the thing that comes in, it takes all the prizes at the end of the game. 90 plus 30 for each water energy attached. And let me tell you, I've had a number of games where I just end up with all of the energy in the deck on the one Lapras, and I'm just one-shotting VMAXs left, right, and center. And you can do it safely, you can do it brazenly, because you've got Articuno to hide behind. And hopefully we can get a few examples of what that looks like, and we can get a few examples of that sort of game state and setup. So, Frosmoth, of course, sits on your bench, and with Ice Dance, it allows you to attach as many energy as you can get into your hand every turn. Fantastic ability. It joins a long line of energy accelerating Pokemon, which frequently see themselves top tier as long as the right partner comes along, and Frosmoth has the added benefit of being a stage 1 Pokemon. So despite that restriction on the ability, it's very you can deal with it quite well with different lines of play and different cards in your deck. As long as you're able to retreat the active Pokemon, then you're good to go. So, and then of course over on the left, the perennial Pokemon-based draw abilities. You've got Crobat V for Dark Asset, and you've got Dedenne GX for Dede Change. I chose to go with the 2 Dedennes because it's not unusual to end up with an unplayable hand of too many cards to play. Being able to discard your hand and draw 6 is often, I think, more powerful than keeping a piece in hand, or 2 or 3 or 4, and then drawing with Crobat. Data change is quite powerful and will be for as long as it's in format. If we move across to the trainers, this is quite reminiscent of what you would have seen in the Frosmoth and Inteleon VMax list in my last video. So you've got things like Capacious Bucket to search your deck for energy, and of course there's a lot of energy in the deck, so Capacious Bucket is good because it gets the energy out, and it means that when you draw with your draw supporters, you're less likely to hit the water energies, which can be good, can be bad. Ideally, you get the energy out of the deck, then you use Ice Dance to attach the energy, and then you draw. So, Capacious Bucket is a good card. Probably the big difference between my Frosmoth list and other Frosmoth lists is I like to run the 2 energy retrieval. I don't like to run the stadium. This will be one of those moments where I probably put a cut in the video. Training Court. So Training Court you'll see in a lot of other Frosmoth lists because it's your counter stadium, so you can get rid of your opponent's stadium. It also lets you grab energy from the discard pile and put it into your hand. I chose not to run any, and for a while I wasn't running any stadiums at all. I conceded adding a stadium back in because Black Market Prism Star presents a bit of a problem if you can't get rid of it, and pretty much every Eternatus list is going to be running that stadium. So you need a way to deal with that stadium, Training Court. Or in my case, I went with Viridian City is the way to go. So why did I go with Viridian City? Well, it's because I have a lot of energy in the deck, and I find that I'm able to preserve the energy quite well. I'm not hurting for energy in the discard pile. I actually want to get it back in. That might sound a bit silly considering that I run 2 energy retrieval, but I suppose that I figure that if I draw this early, then at least I can play it down in most matchups straight away and grab another energy from my deck and put it into my hand. I can't consistently rely on having water energy in the discard pile, which is a pretty good problem to have. So, you've got a few items here: Evolution Incense, Pokemon Communication, Quick Ball at a 4, 3, and 2 count, respectively. That's 4 Quick Ball, 3 Communication, and 2 Evolution Incense. So these are the backbone of your setup, your search and setup. You have quite a few Pokemon in here. You have 19 Pokemon, so a high count of Pokemon Communication is good. Evolution Incense is only sitting at 2, but to be honest, I think between all of the copies of both of the Snom, Frosmoth, Lapras VMax and Lapras V that you've got, 2 Evolution Incense should be enough. Quick Ball does a bit of double duty in the deck, as it does in most decks, where it's searching for your basic Pokemon used for your strategy, but also your outs to Dedenne GX and Crobat V. So quite good. I've got a 2-2 split of Air Balloon and Switch. Air Balloon is quite good. You've got a few Pokemon in the deck that cost a bit to retreat. Lapras V is quite expensive. Actually, no. Apologies. Lapras V only has 2 retreat. So, and then you've got Articuno to retreat as well. Nothing goes beyond 2 retreat on the basic Pokemon. Your Lapras VMax has 3, but most of the time that's going to be attacking, not retreating. So the 3 retreat cost is an acceptable weakness to have. So Air Balloon's quite good because you can delay your switching effect if you so choose. It's also good to just leave on a Pokemon to retreat after a KO. So for example, your opponent takes a KO, you need to accelerate energy to your follow-up attacker, but you haven't got the energy just yet. You put something active, like let's say an Articuno with Air Balloon attached. You get to use your Frosmoth Ice Dance ability on the benched Pokemon, accelerate all the energy to the one you want to attack with, and then retreat the Articuno out of the active. So quite a good tool, Air Balloon. And Switch, of course, has a similar effect to Air Balloon. And we just run a count of 2. Viridian Forest, I mentioned that one before. We want to fish energy out of the deck, and in certain cases, late game, it can help you thin out your hand to protect yourself against Reset Stamp. And then you've got a usual sort of run of trainers here. You've got 4 Professor's Research, very strong draw effect. Marnie is the hand disruption card of the moment, and you've got 2 Boss's Orders to help you finish out games. Now, one of the things that I will mention, and what I've found in my experience, is you can't always assume that Dede Change and Crobat will help you draw into a draw supporter. You've only got 6 here between Marnie and Professor's Research. It's not a lot. So this is where Crobat helps. What you might want to try and do is whittle your hand down to 1 or 2 cards so that Professor's Research is sitting in your hand. You play the Crobat down for Dark Asset, and you draw up till you have 6, and you guarantee that you've got something like Professor's Research in hand to be able to continue playing the turn out or preserving the supporter until the following turn if you so choose. Finally, we'll move into the energy. It's quite a simple split. You've got 13 water energy in the deck. We've got the 1 weakness guard energy. A count of 1 doesn't sound like a lot. It doesn't sound like you would reach the weakness guard energy in time. Of course, what I'm talking about is using it against Pikachu and Zekrom base decks. The idea is to hide behind Articuno until you hit the weakness guard energy. And then once you do, you put it on your Lapras VMax that you intend to start one-shotting tag teams with. So that's what that card's there for. And, you know, that is about the deck in general. You can see it in all its glory here. You've got quite a few Pokemon at play. You've got a very powerful attacker. You've got your energy accelerator. You've got your starting Pokemon, which I think helps set down the plan for how to play the deck. What you're looking to do on your first turn is to attach water energy to Articuno, and then on your second turn, getting the Articuno active and attacking with Cold Cyclone. It's not too dissimilar to what you might do with Inteleon VMAX. The difference here being that your turn 2 is not reliant on Frosmoth, and that's got to be a good thing, right? So, anyhow, I think I've talked about the deck enough. We might just jam a few games and see how it goes. Versus? Yeah, we'll do some versus matches and see how we go. Lapras City with Articuno. And we'll jump into a game. We're going to try again. Dust ourselves off. We got the Dedenne start, which is not the greatest. It's not terrible. It's not terrible. We've got plenty to do on the turn upcoming, so looks like we'll be first on the supporters. Unidentified fossil comes down, and so does Wimpod. So to me, that screams Golisopod and Aerodactyl, I believe, which is a pretty cool anti-meta deck for sure. Now, we've got both air balloons in hand, which is kind of silly. What we're going to use is Capacious Bucket for 1 energy. And that's because we're going to use the other research this turn. So we don't want to go discarding water energy that we don't have to. So I'll attach there. I'm going to put an air balloon here and an air balloon here. And we're going to use research. Quick ball, get rid of the research. What do we want? It's going to be the Snom, right? I've got draw next turn. So we grab the Snom. We put it down. Now the question is whether my opponent's going to attack me next turn, and am I okay with Articuno getting hit? Not really. I really want to be able to attack with the Articuno, so I'm going to try retreating into the Snom. Perhaps the other play there was to grab a second Articuno and put that active, just to be sure that my opponent can't do what they're trying to do. We'll just wait and see what comes out of our opponent here. What would be really ideal is if the Snom survives and I top deck something that lets me draw, search rather, for a Lapras. So my opponent needs triple acceleration energy in order to attack with Aerodactyl. Twin energy if they want to be able to attack with Golisopod. Or they can use a triple excel energy there too. So it looks like it wouldn't have mattered whether I put Snom active or not. Great Catcher does target the Dedenne, so not much to say or do there. Scoop up net, grabs the Jirachi out of the way. Aerodactyl comes down. Now, do you have the triple excel energy? No triple excel, but they do have a research. And I'd be very surprised if our opponent didn't hit what they needed. Oh. It's looking like they didn't hit what they needed. Stellar Wish. You're suddenly running out of ways to attack this turn. Evolution Incense is not going to help you. Unfortunate for our opponent, really unfortunate. So, here, Water Energy onto Articuno. Now, there's a couple of options here. I could Boss's Orders to go for a KO on an unidentified fossil. I don't think I will. I think what I want to do is just research here. Because what we really want to do is start powering up a Lapras. So we're gonna just play it down. And we're gonna retreat the Dedenne for Articuno. And that could have been a misplay, not sure, but we're gonna play Articuno, another Articuno down. Incense, grab, you know what? Oh, we need it. I was thinking about going for the VMax, but I think what I'm going to do here is try and take as many knockouts as possible with the Articunos. And then we're just going to use Cold Cyclone, and we'll take the prize. It's going to be a bit of a long match, this one, because we're mostly going to be taking single prize KOs. Okay. Apologize for my mic down here fading in and out of existence. I might actually just move it to the side so it's not in shot at all, just a little bit. And we can just not focus on that, focus on the game. Aerodactyl is promoted, and they need to look for triple acceleration energy. Research is a good start. Research lets them discard their hand and draw 7. So well-loved ability over the last 10 years. Personally, don't like the card, but the new format now with how it's called Professor's Research signals to me that we'll have that effect for quite a long time coming. No attack from our opponent again, which is unfortunate for them. Fortunate for us, though. What I'm going to do is retreat to this Articuno. I'm going to keep the things that I have in hand, and I'm actually going to Cold Cyclone the active Jirachi again. This time, though, we're going to bounce the energy back to the other Articuno. Why would I do that, might you ask? Well, my opponent is forced to attack the Articuno. They might choose to KO the Dedenne to try and catch up, and that's fine too. In either case, if one of these is knocked out, I can continue threatening with the Articuno rather than threatening with the Lapras and starting to receive damage in return sooner. Ideally, what I want to do is hit a boss's orders so I can knock out something like a 70 HP Wimpod. Any turn where you can take a KO with a single prize attacker in a single prize matchup is really good. It's something you really need to keep an eye out for. We've got 2 Glissopods in play and a Wimpod. Glissopod does 30 plus 50 more for each of my opponent's Vs and GXs, which is not that great for my opponent. I only have the 1 V and 1 GX, so they're capped at 130. So here I'm going to put the Dedenne active. That gives me a bit of freedom to choose what I want to promote. Okay, so I feel like I need to push for the end of this game a bit more. If I attack now with Lapras V, it'll bring me down to 3 prizes remaining on the board to take. If I Dedenne, hopefully I can hit a boss's orders. That would be good. That would be really good. So we're going to Ice Dance to there. And the problem is Articuno is not going to... it's not necessarily going to take a prize on Glycopod, so... we're going to Dedenne GX here. Okay, so we're going to use Evolution Incense first. VMax. Yep, put it down. Now Marnie seems like a good play here. Could also Quick Ball the Com and just grab another Articuno. Articuno's not bad to have a couple of in the back. We're not going to attach the other water energy to Lapras V because I now have enough energy on it that I'm going to knock out any of my opponent's Pokemon in one hit. So we'll use the Marnie for a bit of disruption there. It's quite good. So unfortunately no boss just yet. I know there's one in the discard pile, so it's going to make it a little difficult to reach for. We'll Viridian and get rid of the Quick Ball. Quick Ball doesn't really do that much for us at this point, except look for Crobat, potentially. We can see Boss's Orders is in the deck. We're going to grab the energy out, and what that does is it gets an energy out of the deck. It's one less card for me to draw to try and top deck Boss's Orders. Perhaps the play there was to keep the Quick Ball, because potentially you Crobat for boss for game. We're going to retreat to Lapras and G-Max Pump. Take KO. Now our opponent's doing a bit more damage now, which is a little annoying with the Glisopod, but still not, at the very least, not threatening a one-hit KO on the Lapras. So we'll see what our opponent is able to come up with. Hard Time Slash does 180 now, because it's 30 plus 50 for each V and GX. Does it include... oh yeah, VMax counts as a V. So this is a little tricky. It's a little tricky. We're going to Ice Dance to this Articuno. And we'll hit done. And what what I'm thinking is my opponent is kind of obliged to continue attacking with the Golisopod. What I'm going to do is try and so 180 plus 180. Yeah, it's not a fantastic place to be. I'm just having to think what the play is here. I could do 70 damage with the Articuno and protect the Lapras. It might be worthwhile doing. Don't know. I'm gonna try and stall for one turn. Put this Articuno up because with the balloon attached, I can retreat it if I have to. Actually, I'm gonna Ice Dance to here, get this energy out of my hand just in case I get stamped or something similar. So 3 energy would be 90 plus 90, 180. That's enough. And then we'll Cold Cyclone. And in fact, I'm going to be moving the energy back there anyway. So we keep bouncing the energy around, keeping it in play, which is good. Hard Time Slash is what comes out, does 180 to get the 1-hit KO on Articuno. Our opponent brings it down to 4 to 3. We'll promote to Dene because we have the air balloon attached, gives us a bit of freedom. Pokemon Communication gives us an opportunity to grab the Crobat. But my opponent chose to keep the Golisopod active, and that's interesting as well. What I'm going to do is Viridian Forest, the Snom. Misplayed. I needed to keep that in hand for Pokemon Communication. That's okay. We will get lucky, I'm sure. Cold Cyclone, knock out the Golisopod. Misplay. Not good, but that's alright. Capacious Bucket. It's not exactly what we want. Silly. We had the cards in hand and we threw it away. This is why I practice. But that kind of misplay is timeless as well. Doing something like that. Marnie comes out. And if our opponent plays Marnie, I feel a little better about getting rid of the Pokemon, although it would have been nice to keep it in the deck to increase the chance of drawing it and Com together. We could get hit with Barney, draw into the boss's orders. We've got 2 prizes remaining. Lapras VMax in play. So, Marnie, we have a lot to thank for, and we also have Viridian Forest to thank for as well for helping us thin out the size of our deck and making it more likely that we would draw boss's orders out in this sort of situation. Boss's orders comes out, G-Max Pump. That's the win. 2 prizes. GG. Interesting matchup, that one, but one that we do have the tools to be able to deal with. Articuno is very interesting in that matchup for sure, and possibly not the opposing Pokemon our opponent was hoping to see, for sure. So, we've got a win on the board for our deck, which is fantastic. We've got the Raichu deck box. We've got Fire Energy Sleeves. Let's see. We've got the coin flip, and we always want to go first with this deck. It's always good because you get the first water energy attachment, and ideally you've got Articuno in play. I don't mind starting with Lapras in this situation. I think we're always going to need a switch or an air balloon anyway to be able to attack turn 2. So we're up against Galarian Obstagoon. During your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by your opponent's basic Pokemon. Well, we run more than basic Pokemon, so Galarian Obstagoon is not necessarily an obstacle, but it is something we have to navigate, and of course we also see the Rowlet there to contend with too. So we're going to attach a water energy. And then I'm not sure. A quick ball. I don't necessarily want to get rid of the cards that I have in hand. But at the same time, drawing for just 2 cards is a little weak. But we're going to do it. And the reason for that is research and boss's orders in hand is useful. We did manage to get into a switch. And we're going to play that straight away, and the reason for that is to stop our opponent doing any shenanigans with their own boss's orders. So we'll hit done. So that was a fairly good Crobat V, and maybe I got lucky there. And maybe you could argue that the better play would have been to just go for Dedenne and try and stabilize our setup, but to be honest, like, we have a lot of things in hand and in play already. We've got the Articuno that's active, we've got the Snom and the Lapras V on the bench. All we need to be able to do is attach another energy to Articuno and we're good next turn. And see, what's interesting here, because I kept used the Crobat rather than the Dedenne, I can attach, I can use boss's orders, grab the Rowlet, and we called Cyclone. And it really puts our opponent on the back foot. This is not a good position for our opponent at all. A single Oranguru in play. They're going to have to look to play a supporter and try and draw into multiple basics to try and catch up, because it's not the position you want to be in. On the same token, if our opponent can get a Decidueye into play, the ability which prevents damage done to it by I believe it's VMaxes, is tricky. V's and VMaxes, I think. We'll see as the game goes. I can't quite remember off the top of my head, but between Obstagoon and Decidueye, you prevent a lot of sources of damage, so that's where their relative strength together comes from. So another Snom into play, it's not bad. It's not bad at all. We've got energy retrieval, but it's not doing us much in this matchup. What we really need is an air balloon or a switch. We really need one of those. I'm going to attach water energy to Lapras. Is that the play? This one's a little tricky. I actually think I research and leave the energy in the discard pile, and that's for the chance of getting my other energy retrieval. What other lines of play are there? I could attach a water energy to, let's say, a Snom. Yeah. I'll attach an energy to Snom for the chance that I can get Frosmoth. And switch. Oh no, those are silly ideas too. Anyway, we'll do that. Okay. Ah yes, it does work out. Yeah, this is what I was thinking about actually. So, switch to the Snom, and then we'll use Capacious Bucket here. The reason why we're using Bucket instead of Energy Retrieval is because we want to get energies out of the deck, as usual. Try and reduce the size of what's there. Now, the other play here is to actually start attacking with Lapras V rather than Articuno, because Oranguru's got 120 health. So I'm actually going to do that. I think we evolve up to the VMax. Yep. And the reason why we're evolving up is because we don't want to continually put the energy back into hand if we can help it. So we're going to retreat here and then G-Max pop. 210 damage. Excessive, but it gets the job done. Air Balloon is good to see. Opponent promotes Jirachi and immediately goes for Stellar Wish. Now what are they looking for here? Perhaps a rare candy? Great Ball, that helps. Lets them search their deck, which is filled with Pokemon. So there it is, prevent all damage done to it by your opponent's Vs and VMaxes. I'm pretty sure I read that quite quickly. Already had the rare candy in hand, so fortuitous turn there. Vs and GXs. Okay, so... yeah, and a VMax counts as a Pokemon V. Yep, so... Lapras VMax, not doing anything to it. One of the other advantages of having Articuno in the deck, however, is you've got that clean 2-hit KO on a Decidueye. Now, there is a world where Decidueye has an item attached which will increase its health. The name of that card escapes me. This is what happens when you do things unscripted. You forget the names of cards and you forget effects. So, Splitting Arrow is a really good attack for Decidueye, but as long as Articuno doesn't get one shot, which it is going to, that's a shame. That's okay. We've got ways and means of dealing with the Decidueye, although it's not an ideal situation to be playing into. So, we've got the Dedenne, but we're not going to use it. So we're going to use Energy Retrieval, and we're going to grab 2 Water Energy from the discard pile, like so. We're going to use Pokemon Communication, Dedenne away, Articuno. Now we're actually going to attack with the fresh Articuno first, and the reason for that is if my opponent is unable to place extra damage counters, Splitting Arrow is not going to knock it out in one turn, whereas it doesn't have to work very hard to place damage counters. If that stays on the bench, it'll deal 20 to it with Splitting Arrow, and that's not good for us. Now, we're going to discount our retreat cost, like so. Cold Cyclone. Now, I've just realized my mistake here, and that's that if my opponent doesn't get the knockout on Articuno, there's no way I can attack with it. And I have nothing in hand, and my opponent can see that too. Should have kept the air balloon in hand and retreated to Articuno instead. Bit of a rough situation, to be honest, but we'll just have to make do. Bit of a misplay, and that's what happens when you play live. I don't profess to be the greatest player in the world, and misplays are going to happen, but it's important to be able to call them out when they happen and learn from the experience of playing. Now, what are we going to get off the top? Pokemon Communication is not going to do very much. So, our opponent gets a free attack off, and that's, yeah, it's not great for us. We're kind of in the same situation as we were in before. Our opponent takes 2 prizes though, which is not ideal. We do get the KO on the Decidueye though, and that's good. And it has 3 energy, and that's good as well. Boss's Orders is going to be quite good later in the game. I almost want to just knock out the other Rowlet. Very close to wanting to do it, but we'll Cold Cyclone here. And we take 2 energy, and we'll just move them onto that Lapras. It's not the greatest target for that energy, but it's not terrible. It's not the worst. There is certainly a route to victory here, especially if our opponent can't knock out the Articuno that's active. That would be good. If our opponent gets to evolve the Obstagoon this turn, that would be bad. We'll see. In that case, our opponent gets to knock out the Articuno just by putting the Obstagoon into play, I believe, with its ability, so we'll see. Untamed Shout is what we were thinking of. Do they have the rare candy? Yes, they do. So, Salute 182. Obstagoon into play, Articuno gets knocked out. We're gonna have to put the Crobat active. We don't want to be taking a hit, so We'll see. Galarian Obstagoon is not exactly an obstacle for Lapras though, so what I'm going to be looking to do is just knocking out the Rowlet as soon as possible. Going for the second Rowlet is smart. Our opponent doesn't know that I've got Boss's Orders in hand, but this shores up their bench and protects them from me, preventing them from getting a Decidueye into play next turn, which really is their win condition in this situation. Scoop up net. It's definitely what they wanted to see. Jirachi likely to be picked up. Obstagoon active. Do they have the Dark Energy though? And did they attach already? I don't know. Marnie is going to be the play. I have to put my cards at the bottom of the deck. Draw out a few more. Some good cards here, they're not too bad. I have access to Articuno next turn if I so wish. Okay. So possibly want to look for a Decidueye, look for a Dedenne play, perhaps to try and get the other boss's orders again. Not likely with 25 cards in deck, but we'll see. We may have to settle for just taking a prize the turn upcoming, and I mean that, you know, if that's what you have to do, that's not bad at all. We're going to attach Air Balloon to Crobat. I don't really want to commit energy to it. Capacious Bucket is good. Water energies come down, like so. Frosmoth will put the energy down onto the Articuno, like that, and like that. I'm going to play Quick Ball and get rid of the Snom. Now, Dedenne is likely to play. What are our other lines here? We could go for an Articuno and bounce the energies around like before. I don't know that I want to do that though, and my opponent is not that far from winning themselves, so I think that's what we want to do. Viridian Forest. Do I want to get rid of Turffield Stadium? Yes. Hoping they set up too much. I'm going to use Viridian Forest to thin a card out and just have a look. I think I want to keep the energy in my deck. Frosmoth will Ice Dance and we'll put an energy onto the Articuno. That third energy lets us attack with the Articuno 2 turns in a row, and that's good. We'll use the research there just to dig a little deeper into our deck, see what we can find. We've got another Articuno on the bench, and to be honest, I think that attaching there is fine. Or attaching, I should say, playing it to the bench is okay. If this Lapras ever gets knocked out, we lose the game anyhow, so I think we're okay. We're going to play the Articuno into the active and attack with Cold Cyclone. Knock out the Jirachi, and we'll look to move these energies to here, and we'll hit done. Now, if one of our Articunos gets knocked out, I think the play is to try and set up another Lapras VMax and keep this one out of harm's way. It's not going down anytime soon, but a few more turns up our sleeve might be the ticket. We'll see. We'll see though. 8 cards left in the deck. We know one of them is Boss's Orders. Erica's Hospitality gets a nice big draw off my full bench. Play a card for each of your opponent's Pokemon in play. Can be quite potent against Eternatus VMax. Lets you draw, what is that, 9 cards? A lot, that's for sure. Oranguru switching the card on top of the deck. We've got the Counter Stadium, Turffield Stadium knocks away the Viridian and lets our opponent search the deck for an evolution card once again. We've got the evolution on the left, and this is a smart play. You make either option difficult for me to deal with, or it presents 2 options that I wish were on the same option if I Boss's Orders. However, even smarter is you put the other one at Dartrix, and you have the Decidueye in the back ready to go. We didn't draw what we wanted off the top, so I think what we do here... So if I research here, I lose. That's not really what we want to do. I could money here. That's a line. We've got 2 switches in the discard pile, 2 balloons in play. So if I attack with this Articuno, it is not retreating, and that's a bit of a problem. Still, put it into play. I think we have to Marnie. I think Marnie is what we have to do. I'm gonna play the Incense just to reduce my deck by 1 card. And I'll Marnie. We can't research, unfortunately. We can't play that. We've got the boss's orders in hand now, and so now all we need to do is hope that our opponent doesn't grab a Marnie for themselves, and it's looking alright. So we'll Cold Cyclone and put our opponent at 1 prize, or put ourselves at 1 prize. I think what I'm going to do is put the energy on Frosmoth. Now the reason why I'm putting it over there is the off chance that it gets stranded active somehow. If our opponent had something cheeky like a Fione, it's Fione? Yeah. If they have something like that, then I could promote Frosmoth, and that's a single prize for my opponent to take. Honestly, there isn't too many options there. It is like another Pokemon that can attack our opponents, like Decidueyes, for example. So it's worth considering. Now, what are we going to do? We've got the second Decidueye in play, but of course, we know that we've got boss's orders. However, unfortunately, we just have to hope that our opponent can't Marnie us. I really wanted to play against an ADP, and play like a game where I'm saying it like it should definitely be a win, but it just would have been nice to play another match. So I think I'm gonna attach the weakness guard energy here, and that means my opponent can't stall for any reason. I'm gonna quick ball the Frosmoth away just to thin the deck out a little bit. We'll grab the Lapras. And this is to protect ourselves a little bit if our opponent decides that they want to stamp us at this stage. We're just going to hit done. Placing the energy means it puts our opponent on a timer to deal with the Articuno. Honestly, it doesn't look very good for our opponent. One line of play, of course, is to evolve up the Galarian Obstagoon to get the KO on Articuno and force something else out. In which case, I'd be getting the Articuno there out. Our opponent looks like they attack, and that presents a way forward for us to win, which is good. We put the Articuno active, and then we just boss's orders, Zigzagoon out, Cold Cyclone, and that's the game. Normally that'd be a bit of a tricky matchup, and without the Articunos, definitely a difficult one to navigate for sure, for multiple reasons. Another card you can consider to help you with that matchup if you're struggling is Suicune, but honestly having the 4 Articunos is really good. It really helps. So I'm gonna leave it at that. Hopefully I can get some footage against other top tier decks in the week coming, and perhaps I can share that on my YouTube channel. But in a nutshell, and in a fairly unscripted fashion, that's Lapras VMax. You've got Articuno to lead the way with Cold Cyclone and Blizzard Veil, I believe the effect is called. Really helps you set up in a stable way and protects the threats you're trying to build up on the bench. You've got Frosmoth for your energy acceleration to be able to attack out of nowhere, and you've got Lapras VMax to swing big and take down the big threats that your opponent can set up. So that was Lapras VMax. Hopefully I'll have a follow-up video against some tougher matchups. And yeah, we'll leave it at that. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you've been toying with Articuno or if you have a different take on Frosmoth as a Pokemon in general. I'd love to hear about it. Frosmoth, one of my favorite Pokemon in format at the moment, especially after these past 2 decks. So I'd love to hear from you. Anyhow, tell me what you think. Is this type of video too long for your liking? Do you prefer the shorter tutorial style that I've done up until now? But anyhow, have a good time with this deck. Let me know if it works for you, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you very much for watching. Have a good day.